This is Silph Radio, the podcast for Pokemon-centered discussion. Silph Radio is a fan-made project presented by Secret Room Multimedia and has no association whatsoever with Nintendo, Game Freak, Viz Media, or any other IP holder. This podcast contains adult conversation and isn't intended for young listeners. I'm your host, Nathan K., and each episode I invite a fellow Pokemon enthusiast to help me explore and discuss a different corner of the Pokemon universe. Today, on the podcast, we have...
Briana Joy. Hello, everybody. It's good to see you guys again.
You can't see them.
Have you listened? You know, every time I do this, every time.
It's because is this because you think that I'm the only listener? You're just like, oh, it's good to see all the Silph Radio listeners again. Hey, Craig listens too, damn it.
He matters.
Briana has returned to the podcast for Valentine's Day to help me discuss Magical Pokemon Journey, or, as it is known in Japan, Magical Pipipi Adventure, a little-known Pokemon manga. So, to keep this straight, there's Magical Pipipi Adventures, which is known to us as Magical Pokemon Journey. That's the one with a talking Clefairy. Then there's Pokemon Adventures, which was called Pocket Monster Special in Japan. Then there's Pocket Monsters, which was the other one with a talking Clefairy. So it's kind of hard to keep track of all these manga, but this manga was written by Yumi Tsukirino, who more recently was known for doing a Lilo and Stitch manga, which I thought was relevant knowledge to you, Briana, our
that's so cool.
Our resident Disney fanatic.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I've checked it out. The art in it is actually really cool. It seems like her art style has evolved a lot. This is a shojo manga, which basically means like a manga for young girls as contrasted to shonen manga, which was for boys, like, you know, Dragon Ball Z, stuff like that. And it centers around a young girl named Hazel and her desperate attempts to win over her crush, a cute boy named Almond. This is a very relationship-centric series.
Right off the bat, when I was reading through this, I love the art style. It's super cute, super girly. It's definitely something I would have enjoyed in my younger years. I like how it's like simplistically written as well. You know, it's something that I could have come up with. Not saying it like in a bad way, but like it sounds like kind of like a fantasy, like a little girl would be like, oh, wouldn't it be nice if, you know, she could have a relationship, you know, and have Pokemon in there too. Like, I don't know, it just pertains to like my inner 7-year-old, and I love it.
Yeah. Totally. Pokemon is not just a boys thing, and I like that there is this aspect of the franchise that honors that, and it actually did receive an American release, at least the first 7 volumes, I believe, out of 10.
Yep.
So that's cool.
Yeah. One aspect of the Pokemon fandom that's really interested me lately is shipping. And shipping, by definition, is fans assuming a romantic relationship between two characters.
Usually one that isn't necessarily explicitly made clear in the text itself. So, like,
exactly,
there might be undertones, or it might just be, you know, wishful thinking.
Right.
So, like,
exactly.
I ship Buffy and Spike. Well, that actually happened in Buffy, so that's one aspect of it. And you prefer that over Buffy and Angel, for example. But then there's also, say, I ship Rachel Phoebe. So you actively want there to be an episode of Friends where Rachel and Phoebe hook up, even though it hasn't happened and there's no subtext. Or, oh, I ship, I don't know what, where there might be some romantic tension there, but it's never explicitly...
I'm sure people have done that already.
Yeah, so like I think those are probably the 3 major ways, right?
Exactly, and you know, it's no different in the Pokemon universe. There's so many different ship combinations, and they have names for them, which is kind of interesting.
Let's try to keep them all human here, okay?
Yeah. Oh, yes, I didn't even bother to dig that deep, because I know very well where these things lead, and I don't want to go there.
The rabbit hole goes too deep. Wait, bad choice of words. Bad choice of words. Bad choice of words.
Take it back. So the most popular right now, and it's actually the only one that has been confirmed, is known as Amore shipping, or the Japanese term is Satoseri, which is actually Satoshi and Serena. It's their names put together, so it's Satoseri. And Amore shipping, you know, it's based off the French word amour, for love, and the Kalos region is based in France, so they were like, okay, cool. But yeah, that's the only one that's been confirmed. But there's so many other ones.
What do you mean confirmed?
Yes, like it actually is a thing confirmed in the Japanese and American anime, and it is canon.
That they're
canon,
what?
Factual.
They're dating. They kissed. They have feelings for each other. What?
Well, those of you who have not finished the X, Y, and Z anime, feel free to fast forward this podcast for the next 5 minutes because we got some spoilers for you. Okay, I think I've paused long enough.
You know what'd be great is if this was a visual podcast, I could put like one of those little transitions like Clefairy, Clefairy, and the Clefairies like go dancing by and it does this weird little That 70s Show kaleidoscope thing.
Like in the Pikachu's Vacation.
Yes.
The transitions. Yes, please, shall we?
And then Mila Kunis bounces by on a trampoline.
We should totally do that. Oh my gosh. But yes, when Serena is saying goodbye to Ash, she kisses him. It actually happens, and I am so happy with how they handled it for their characters, because Ash has never been the type of touchy-feely kind of guy, so the way that they handled it was very accurate to his character, the way he reacted to it. Nathan, you probably haven't seen the video. I'll have to send it to you, because I would love to get your reaction on that, because that's just, I don't know, I think they handled it very well.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll bite. Wait, bad choice of words. Bad choice of words.
Oh my goodness. Backtracking a little bit though, Ash and Serena actually had met before he began his journey. They actually had like a little flashback where he basically rescued and took care of her. They were at Professor Oak's summer camp when they were kids, like before he got Pokemon and all that.
Okay, thanks Tim Kring, creator of Heroes.
Right. So yeah, that was really cute. And just throughout the entire series, like she's just wanted to express her feelings for him, and they've made it painfully obvious. Like, for example, with Ash and Misty, everything was kind of forced. 4 Kids kind of forced it in the English version. But this is like
more natural.
Like they actually they're like, yes, this is happening. Like this is actually canon. And that just kind of blows my mind that they're actually pursuing a relationship. And there's actual character development, and I'm like, wait, what?
And Ash is still 10 years old, though, right?
Yes, he is. He looks a little older in the series, but he's still 10.
That's so weird.
But the way they handled it, though, was great. She's at the airport, and they're saying goodbye, and she starts going down the escalator, and then she turns around, and she says, oh, one more thing, and then all you see is their feet, but you see her feet and his feet, and she kind of stands up on her toes and then goes back down, and Ash is just kind of sitting there, and all of their friends, Bonnie and Clement and Pikachu are blushing like crazy, and Ash just kind of sits there dumbfounded, and then he smiles afterward, and then that's it. Like that's how they handled it.
So it's very obviously implied without actually showing the kiss.
Exactly. And I find it interesting too, between the English, because I watched the English and the Japanese version of that scene. So in the English version, she says, you're the kind of person I want to be. Next time we meet, you're going to like the person I've grown into. And in the Japanese version, she says, you are my goal. Until we meet again, I'll become a more and more attractive woman.
Wow.
Right. So that's kind of like, okay.
Yep.
So Japan's kind of like pushing it a little bit. And I like that. They're pushing the envelope.
I don't like that, but whatever.
No?
It is.
What don't you like about it?
Well, that's one of those curious aspects of culture where it's just the objectification of the feminine. Like that's the woman's goal in society.
That did bother me about it, but it's like the way they view people are different in that culture, and I just find that interesting.
Yeah. So I don't want to come off as xenophobic. It's not a thing about Japanese culture. It's a problem in pretty much every modern culture on Earth. So
this is true,
including our own. Obviously.
Exactly. But yeah, that's the only confirmed one. There's also, as I said before, Poke shipping, which is Ash and Misty, Advanced shipping, which is Ash and May, Pearl shipping, which is Ash and Dawn, and Contest shipping, which is May and Drew. Like this, I could go on and on. Like those are like the main ones, but
I ship the SS Anne and the SS Aqua. Sorry.
Yes, ship the ships.
Dad jokes. That's what you get for free, people.
Oh my god, that's great. Come for Pokemon, leave with dad jokes.
No, not come for Pokemon. Bad choice of words. Bad choice of words.
Oh my god, Nathan. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I only scratched the surface on shipping. It turns into a very dark, fucked up place after a while. So we're just gonna,
So who do you ship? Ash, Serena?
Oh yeah, since it's confirmed and it's actually a thing, I support it.
Anybody else you ship?
Ash and Misty, that was just my inner child.
So you ship two different people for Ash.
Well, I'm fighting with my inner 7-year-old and my 24-year-old self. 24-year-old self, like, this is actually a thing. And then my 7-year-old self is wishful thinking, like, no, it's supposed to be this way because I said so. So that's 7-year-old me right now.
Can't let go of your early aspirations.
Never, ever.
All right, so in today's episode, we're covering Volume 1 of Magical Pokemon Journey, titled A Party with Pikachu. I actually read this comic growing up at the comic shop. My friends and I would spend a lot of time at the local comic shop. It's really cool because it was just this like unassuming place that most people didn't know exist in this giant brick building known as the Spaghetti Warehouse because it was an old...
Oh my goodness.
You're probably familiar, but a lot of people might not be. It's an old warehouse that was turned into a spaghetti restaurant, and it's awesome. And then there's this little pair of doors like off in the corner and this hidden game and hobby shop where we would go play our Magic cards. We would, in high school, a lot of times just head out there on a Saturday, hang out there all day. We'd play games. I'd read comics there that I couldn't afford to buy.
Okay, those of you can't see me right now, but my jaw is dropped because that is just the coolest fucking thing I've ever heard. There was a secret comic shop inside Spaghetti Warehouse.
Wow. Yeah. So are you familiar? Are you familiar with Play the Game, Read the Story here in Syracuse?
Yes.
It used to be known as Altered States, and then they had to change their name because it wasn't. It sounded like a head shop. It sounded like a place you buy drug paraphernalia, and parents wouldn't bring their kids in there. It was hidden there.
Oh my goodness.
And then it closed there, and they moved after they changed their name, and the location was closed for like 15 years, and they just reopened. They reopened in that location. It's there again.
It's like a legit bootleg comic store. That's the coolest thing ever. It's a speakeasy. It's a comic book speakeasy.
Right, because it's hidden, right? And yeah, they had like this back room, where you'd go to play the games before they expanded and knocked out a wall and built a bigger room for tournaments and stuff. So yeah, you'd go play games in the back room. You'd gamble in the back. We didn't really gamble, but to go with your speakeasy metaphor. Oh yeah, it was. I romanticized those days of my youth so much, playing card games and going to tournaments and just spending all day at the comic shop. And then we'd leave, and there were like these like wooded areas. Like you'd go down this path of like brick buildings with broken windows and like trees that are like that are overgrowing the area, and it's such a cool area.
That kind of describes Syracuse in a nutshell, though. Broken windows and wooded areas.
Right.
No, for real though, Syracuse is a wonderful place. That's not why I moved away.
And then Professor Oak comes running after you, and he's like, "It's not safe to go without one of these." And then he hands you a gun. Oh fuck!
I mean, he must be pretty well off to just hand a kid a gun. Guns are expensive. But for real though.
So issue 1 of this comic is called "How Do You Do, Pikachu?" So we meet our two leads, Hazel and Almond. Hazel tells Almond that she made him a cake, and he's all like, "Oh, you better not put anything in it this time." Holy shit, Bill fucking Cosby and shit. Turns out her grandpa made her a love potion to use on Almond, but when he goes to eat the cake, it backfires and it explodes, setting off the running theme that she's always trying to win him over, but always just messing stuff up in her attempts to do so. And every time we see this dude, something bad is happening to him, usually because of Hazel. And it's very stressful and trying for Almond. We also meet our third main human character, Grandpa, who basically asks Hazel to go out and catch her Pokemon to further his research. She doesn't have any reason to do this, but agrees to because A, Almond is really into catching Pokemon, so she wants to like relate to his interests and, spend time with him that way. And B, Grandpa agrees to give her his new and improved love potion if she goes out and catches Pokemon for him.
One thing I love about this comic is it's definitely geared toward girls. When speaking from, a woman perspective, when you're a little girl, like there was that boy you had a crush on and you would just do anything I just love how it speaks to like the younger generation of girls, because that's how we were like back when boys were like avoiding us because we had cooties, and we're just like, wait, I love you. Like it's so cute, and the art style, oh my god, it's adorable.
Absolutely.
Grandpa's cute little chibi form,
and I'm obsessed with these obscure corners of the universe where there's this whole 10-volume story with main characters we've never heard of in the same Pokemon universe, Just living
I love how it's something different.
Yeah, they're living out their lives. They're not going on the Pokemon journey. They're not fighting Team Rocket. They're not battling gym leaders. This is what these characters do in the Pokemon universe. Hazel, spoiler alert, never, as far as I know, never actually catches any Pokemon.
She doesn't even know what they are. That's the funny part. And it's funny, too, because if you think about it, you're like, wait, haven't you lived in this world, like, I don't know how old she is, like 7, 8?
No, I think she's older than that. She's got to be like 13
older.
At least. I'd guess 13.
Yeah.
Then again, Ash is 10, so I don't know.
True. The age barrier is very skewed in the Pokemon world. We've got Professor Oak banging Ash's mom, and that's a huge age gap, but whatever. I guess age doesn't matter in the Pokemon world.
So are you implying that Almond is 23? And this is why he's like, leave me alone, Jesus Christ.
It would not surprise me. Oh my goodness. I just like how she's lived in the Pokemon world her entire life, and then she just goes outside in the backyard and she's like, wait, what's that? Like, where have you been?
Yeah, I mean, she's probably familiar with, like, Pidgeys, Rattatas, but especially in the early days of Pokemon, before Red and Blue went out and pioneered the cataloging of the Pokedex and everything, a lot of people probably didn't know what rare Pokemon were, Maybe they heard about Clefairies, but maybe they'd never heard of a Tauros or a Scyther. That's far-fetched to believe they'd never heard of, like, a specific type of animal, but I don't know. You know what I mean? Maybe...
I see what you did there. Far-fetched.
I do that all the time, and no, it's never intentional.
I love it. It's great.
I also really like Grandpa. He, I thought, was a really fun character. He's just the short little, like, creepy and weird, eccentric granddad. He's like a mad scientist. He's always building magic mirrors and potions and stuff in his basement. And he's the stereotypical manga trope of a creepy old man.
Hands down.
Creeper.
Hands down. I love it, though.
Those are the major human characters, but equally important are the Pokemon characters. We are introduced to a skittish and kind of nervous Pikachu when she goes out looking for Pokemon. She finds this Pikachu, scares it away trying to befriend it, and then runs into Almond and accidentally scares away the Spearow that he was out there trying to catch, much to his chagrin. The Pikachu returns. He tries to catch the Pikachu, but she stops him, like, stop, you're going to scare it away. And the Pikachu shocks both of them, but because she's wearing this special suit that her grandpa made that protects her from harm, she's not hurt by the electric shock and ends up gaining the Pikachu's trust. It kind of, like, comes along with her, but she never actually catches any Pokemon. They're just sort of her friends.
Exactly, and I love that. You don't have to beat up and attack and catch Pokemon. Like, she just befriends them.
It's like the way that Ash gets badges is the way that she gets Pokemon. She doesn't actually...
Exactly. She doesn't actually do anything. She just kind of is there. Just a good person. Here, let me
proves her strength of heart.
So our next one, Clefairy comes through, issue 2. So Hazel's still following Almond, and they're on their way up to Mount Moon, and she's like, I'm going to try to surprise him. So she sneaks up behind him, just kind of like pokes him in the back, and he falls down a cliff. I love the little side note, and it's like, it's just a comic book. Nobody dies.
The comic assures us he's okay. I think they weren't traveling together. He is out doing his Pokemon thing, and she's out there like,
right.
Ooh, let's find Almond. Oh, there he is. I knew he'd be out here at Mount Moon looking for Clefairy or something, So, meanwhile, speaking of Clefairy, they hear this poor Clefairy cry out for help. It's an actual talking Clefairy.
Yes, and it's being attacked by a couple Ekans, and then Pikachu comes to the rescue, of course, scares them away temporarily, and they meet Clefairy, which is a talking Clefairy.
Yeah, introduces itself in English, or probably in Japanese, in the Japanese version. And it's this awkward kind of scaredy cat with poor self-esteem that actually physically shrinks when it's feeling small, which is interesting.
Sounds like me as a kid.
Sounds like me as an adult. Which is why I podcast. Okay. You can't see me. None of you can see me. It's interesting. It's another one of those aspects that pop up in the manga a lot of Pokemon that have unique powers. And Pokemon speaking English is just sort of a thing that happens in this sometimes. It's weird. Certain Pokemon can speak English. Certain Pokemon can't, but some Pokemon can't speak English, and yet Hazel can still understand them, but nobody else can. And then some Pokemon can't speak English, but everybody can understand them. And then some Pokemon can't speak English, but they provide subtitles for us, the audience. And some Pokemon, they don't. It's so weird. I don't...
Clusterfuck. I think, honestly, all Pokemon can speak English. They just choose not to. They're just like, nah, I'm going to make shit hard.
Oh, that's awesome. That's like
I'm going to talk however I want. And then you have to deal with it.
In the original Oz books, because there's like 13 Wizard of Oz books, the movie you saw is just the first book. And whenever Dorothy brings an animal to Oz, it ends up talking. Her little kitten, Eureka, her chicken, Bellina, they all talk to her and have this distinct personality. Hank the mule is another one that comes with her one adventure. But Toto never talks because he didn't talk in the first book, and it would be weird to have Toto talking. And L. Frank Baum, the author, would introduce these books with like a little foreword, and he'd be like, he would act as if he was the liaison to Oz, and Dorothy would actually write him these letters from Oz telling him all about her adventures, and then he would write a book based on what she told him. So he treated it as if it was real, and kids wrote to him and were like, hey, how come any other animal can talk when they go to Oz, but Toto can't? So he's like, that's weird, that's a good question, I'll ask Dorothy. He corresponded with Dorothy, and she said, I don't know, I'm going to have to ask Toto. And she's like, Toto, how come you can't speak English and everybody else can? And Toto's like, oh, I can, I just don't really want to. And then walked away. And that's the only line Toto says in the entire, 13 books, which is awesome.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's the same case with Pokemon. They're just like, I'm not feeling it. So, not feeling it. You're just going to have a hard-ass time with me. Sorry, not sorry.
So Pokemon are just fucking with humans when they only say their names?
Oh, yeah. Think of it this way. The fact that they possess so much power, just in general, their powers that they have, they could easily just, destroy the human race. But they're just like, meh, whatever, We can hang out. We can be buddies. And, it's interesting that they allow these trainers to catch them when they could easily just, fry them with, a flamethrower. No problem.
They're really training us. They just allow us to think that we're training them.
Exactly.
Their normal mode of communication is just animal noises and body language and stuff like real animals, but they've learned to speak just to placate us and dumb everything down for us. They're just like, Clefairy, Ekans. Just to fuck with us. These stupid humans.
Oh, yeah.
Why would we just say our names that they gave us? That's dumb. These dumb humans.
Exactly. But no. Get it this way. They feed us. And they pamper us. It's cool. These balls they put us in are tiny, but you know what? We're going to take over someday, and it's going to be worth it. It's all going to be worth it.
No, there is no... They've
sure
already taken over. We're just unknowing slaves to the Pokemon system.
Exactly.
You know what it's probably like in the PC? It's probably like a Matrix heaven in the PC. They got us to build this fucking Matrix for them. Capture us, keep them fed and maintained, and then live eternally in these digital worlds that they're rebuilding and repurposing right under our noses.
I'm just picturing some Mr. Mime sitting at a computer, just trying to hack the mainframe. We got this. Those dumbasses, we got them to do everything we needed. We got this.
Hey, Mimey, what are you doing? Mime. Oh, well, that checks out. Hey, wait a minute.
No idea.
So
they're smarter than we give them credit for.
Back to the story. Apparently this awkward talking Clefairy and Pikachu are friends, and Hazel agrees to help train the Clefairy to overcome its fears. She picks an unthreatening Metapod from a tree in the forest, and Clefairy is still scared. Almond shows up and he's like, oh shit, a Clefairy, and tries to catch the Clefairy, but Pikachu shocks him to protect his friend. They are both boys, by the way, the Clefairy and the Pikachu. It's sort of unclear in the comic, at least in Volume 1, but apparently they're both males.
So the Ekans come back, and they have an Arbok with them, and the Arbok, I love how it's got a little rose in its mouth. It's super cute.
It's like a romantic Arbok. It rolls its Arboks. Arbok.
And I'm sure this is when certain Japanese words mean other things. and it doesn't translate well in the English version. Arbok says something along the lines of, "Oh, I'm here to get a girl or something," and they're like, "No, you're here to fight somebody." They're like, "Oh, okay." Like, I'm sure in the Japanese version, he said something that sounded similar to that. So, like, it has, like, a different meaning depending on how it's said. And I'm pretty sure that...
come up with, like, an English pun to serve the same purposes as the Japanese pun. Yeah, he has a rose between his teeth because he thought he was supposed to win the girl. And they were like, no, you're supposed to win a fight with the girl. Who hasn't that happened to?
Exactly. Puns are just a beautiful thing. I just wish they would cross the language barrier a little easier.
So Pikachu jumps up to, like, protect Hazel, but the Ekans bite and poison the Pikachu. Clefairy flips the fuck out. Literally, like, blacks out, jumps forward in a rage, and, like, mega punches the snakes away. But then afterwards doesn't remember any of it. There's, like, trees toppled. Everybody's like, holy shit. Like, all the crickets stopped chirping. And Clefairy's like, what happened? Where'd the snakes go? And they're like, it's cool. Like, Clefairy straight turns into Tyler Durden on these snakes. Which you don't see happen again in Volume 1, but I'm curious whether it happens in future volumes.
So, of course, they befriend Clefairy, and then we move on to, that cute Jigglypuff, which is Volume 3.
Issue 3. Just say
Volume 1, Issue 3. So, Volume 1, Issue 3. And I love the beginning of these comics, too. They do, like, a brief little synopsis of what happened in the previous one. And, they're just super cute. And Pikachu's just sitting there going, pee, pika, pee, pika, pee.
Yeah, and then it starts with Grandpa using a crystal ball to locate Almond for Hazel. And she and Pikachu go and crash his Pokemon journey once again in order to subject him to a picnic. Clefairy shows up, absolutely terrified because of a note he received from his friend Jigglypuff. Jigglypuff shows up. This Jigglypuff wears a cute little bow on her ear, and it turns out that she was just inviting Clefairy and Pikachu to a party that she's throwing. Clefairy and Pikachu are both like, oh, hell no, we're not really feeling that good. We can't make it, but Jigglypuff gives them this glare of death, like, Jiggly, and they're like, oh.
And Hazel's like, of course I'll go, and they're like, no, please don't.
So
like, you don't know what you're getting yourself into.
They all go to Jigglypuff's house. Yes, Jigglypuff has a cute little cottage with, like, heart-shaped windows and, like, a floral pattern on the roof. It's adorable.
I know. I saw that, and I'm like, wait, Pokemon have houses? See, they're already better than us. Like, they're living pretty well.
Yeah, it's a weird take on the Pokemon universe. Like, the Pokemon are much more people-like than we see them in the wild in most other forms of Pokemon media.
So Jigglypuff invites them in for some food, and of course Pikachu and Clefairy are kind of leery.
Jigglypuff gets really pissed about that, though, and, like, puffs up, like, really, really big, intimidating them. So they're like, okay, yeah, we'll eat up. Dig in.
So Clefairy takes one bite of the cake, and it looks like Clefairy just kind of just KOs, just, like, dies right then and there.
Yeah,
so I'm assuming the food is just horrible. And they're just like...
awful.
And they can't leave because Jigglypuff is like, I'm going to murder you if you don't eat this food. And they're like, okay.
Well, Hazel and Almond grab Pikachu and Clefairy and, like, make a run for it, but Jigglypuff is apparently, like, this really spoiled princess that gets pissed when she doesn't get her way. So she pulls this rope and, like, catches them with a net trap that's, like, down the path from her house as they're fleeing. Pikachu uses its Thunder Shock to get them out because Hazel's still protected by her suit that Grandpa made her, but Almond gets totally fried.
And then Jigglypuff uses Disable so they can't move at all.
But it doesn't affect Hazel, so...
Of course, because she's got the magic cloak that her grandpa got her. See, we gotta get one of those. I wish it would deflect insults. Like, sorry, I can't hear you. I got my magical cloak on.
You can't hurt me. Shrink. She grabs her friends and she's like, fuck you, Jigglypuff, you fucking dick. We're getting out of here. And Jigglypuff starts crying because she just wanted to throw a party for her friends. And Hazel's like, oh, I can relate to that because I'm always trying to throw a party in Almond's pants and Almond won't have it. And so they go back and suffer through Jigglypuff's awful cooking. Everybody's happy except for everyone but Jigglypuff. The end.
So my take on Jigglypuff is she's a spoiled little princess that always gets her way. And obviously Pikachu and Clefairy, they all know each other. And they know better than to mess with her. But of course Hazel doesn't know all this. So she's just like, oh, it's a Jigglypuff. What could possibly go wrong?
I love the subtle personalities that they give the characters. We'll be introduced to a Squirtle later on as well. And there's like this circle of friends in the Pokemon world that Hazel never actually captures. They still live out in the wild on their own, but they're just friends with each other, and they all do have these like subtle personality archetypes.
So the next issue is issue 4.
Tangela's Secret.
This one, I really enjoyed it because it kind of pokes fun. It pokes fun at Tangela's character design. So in this episode, they're just kind of hanging out, and they want to draw each other. And in the first comic, and How Do You Do Pikachu, when she's describing to Almond what Pikachu looks like, she draws a picture, and it's just really poorly done.
It's like that scene in Scott Pilgrim when he's like, have you seen a girl with hair like this? And he holds up the paper. Have you ever seen Scott Pilgrim?
Yes.
Yeah, and he holds up the paper with a crude drawing, and the guy's like, that's Ramona Flowers. And it's like that, except Almond's like, you're drawing shit. I don't know what that is. It actually looks a little bit like, he's like, that's Mimikyu. And she's like, Mimikyu? And he's like, you'll understand in 16 years.
She's like, let me draw you. He's like, no. He's like, I saw your Pikachu drawing. I'm good.
She's like, let me draw a picture of you, and then you draw me like one of your French girls. And he's like, no, leave me alone. I will go to jail for that, Hazel. You have to stop this.
Stop pushing it.
Clefairy asks what it's like to draw a picture. So she's like, you've never drawn a picture? Dude. So she rips out some paper from her sketch pad, gives them to Pikachu and Clefairy, and encourages them to draw their own pictures. So they decide to draw each other, not confident in their ability to draw anything else. They're kind of like me growing up. I was only confident in my ability to draw Pokemon. Jigglypuff, however, being a princess, doesn't draw her own pictures. Instead, she hires a couple beret-wearing Jigglypuffs with paintbrushes and another in like a bonnet and hipster glasses to paint a massive portrait of herself. I like the hipster glasses Jigglypuff. She shows up once or twice more, and I'm intrigued by that character.
She was a hipster before it was cool.
She was back in 1999.
Yes.
So they paint this massive portrait of the Princess Jigglypuff for her, and it's in a frame. It's this big ordeal.
And and then they look at Clefairy's drawing, and it's really well done.
Yeah, Clefairy apparently is a really talented artist, and Pikachu draws this serviceable picture of Clefairy, but as you said, Clefairy's picture is magnificent, and Hazel wants to really impress Almond, who's made it clear that he doesn't like her art, so she goes looking for a Pokemon that he's never seen before that she can draw, and ends up finding a pretty good one in Tangela, who was always one of my favorite of the original 150. You only get it by trading in the game. You can't find it in the wild anywhere, so it's implied that it's very rare. And I think they're cute. They're cute and adorable and super cool and mysterious and weird. They're weird Pokemon.
I love how this kind of pokes fun at the character design.
She finds the Tangela. It's like standing still out in a field, probably absorbing sun rays. I imagine plant-type Pokemon just sit still a lot. And she's like, well, it's not moving, so I'm going to sit down and draw this. It's being a good model. I'll draw it like one of those Kalos girls. Meanwhile, Almond, Pikachu, and Jigglypuff are all looking for her, but she just gets really involved in making sure she can draw a great picture.
And I love this scene because she just stares at Tangela, and I love how they poke fun at the character design because she's just kind of staring at Tangela, and like she's just right up in his face, and she's like, so what's inside those tangles anyway? And Tangela's just like,
what's under the vines?
Tangela's like, no, I'm good. And it's so funny, too, because, like, we never find out, but...
She's just persistently trying to get a peek, and the Tangela won't let her, and eventually she gets on its nerves, and it, like, grabs her in its tentacles, which are able to just, like, extend out and stretch, hoists her violently into the air. As I said, Almond and the other Pokemon are looking for Hazel, so when they see her shoot up into the sky in these vines, like off in the distance, that tips them off. There she is. So they start running there. And Pikachu's electric attacks aren't going to do any good against a grass-type Pokemon like Tangela. So Almond pulls out a knife, which he got from Professor Oak. He chose the knife. His rival chose the gun.
I wonder which one won.
But it's okay, because the first gym leader has brass knuckles. So you've got the advantage in that fight.
So Almond decides to take it into a dark place, and he's like, I'm going to cut up this motherfucker. And Hazel's like, please, God, no. And she stands up for Tangela, and she's just super apologetic. She's like,
it was my fault.
I'm sorry. I tried to look under its tangles. And that just sounds so dirty.
Well, it was an invasion of the Tangela's privacy. And she's like, I wouldn't leave it alone. I pissed it off. Don't cut off its vines. Don't hurt it. I was being a dick. The Tangela's like, oh, shit. Accepts her apology, sets her down, and actually apologizes back. It's unclear whether this is telepathically or what. But
he touches his vine to her forehead, so I'm assuming that's telepathic in that sense. Either that or he's comforting her, saying it's okay, like, right. It's cool. You're not the first one to try to look under my tangles.
Yeah. The Tangela's like, look, I was just nervous. I've never been touched by a human before. And then Hazel, like, deliberately looks over at Almond while still talking to the Tangela and goes, yeah, me neither. And Almond's like, Jesus Christ, I swear to God. And that didn't really happen.
The best part is, at the end of this comic, though, she's like, Tangela actually let me look underneath.
Yeah, the Tangela's like, look, if it's cool, why don't you keep drawing me? And she's like, all right, cool. So they sit down to finish the drawing before sunset.
And then at the end of the comic, she's like, Tangela actually let me see what's under the tangles. And of course, the drawing is so crappy that, like, it doesn't look any different. Like, it has no closure on what is underneath Tangela's tangles. But
which just drives Almond crazy. He's like, not even the lead Pokemon researchers have seen under a Tangela's tangles. Bill's never even seen under a Tangela's tangles. Under the Tangela's tangles.
That could go to a very dark place.
I'm going to write a story about my youth, and I don't know whether to call it Broken Windows in Wooded Areas or Under the Tangela's Tangles.
Oh my God.
Or Magical Pipipi Adventure.
A Pokemon journey through Syracuse.
Which brings us to issue 5, The First Labor of Pikachu. Getting biblical and shit. This is a weird issue. Basically, it can be explained pretty succinctly and simply. Grandpa is excited to deliver this package containing his newest and greatest creation yet to Hazel, but he's not excited about the prospect of hustling on foot from his house to her house. However, on the way, he runs into Pikachu, who is frolicking in a field of flowers, and asks Pikachu, who's always going over to Hazel's anyway, to deliver the package for him. He goes on this rant about how great the gift is, and it's a one-of-a-kind gift, and Hazel's going to love it. So Pikachu takes the package, excited for the dopamine rush that he'll get from Hazel's approval when he delivers it.
So, like any secret, hidden, unknown package, you have to look at it.
Yeah, his curiosity gets the best of him, and he just has to take a peek.
It's a heart-shaped mirror, and he kind of takes a look in it, and he sees, like, a face that's kind of like
creepy, like boogie face. It's weird, and I guess it's hard to. It was hard for me to get what's going on. It seems like he throws the mirror in fear, like
and he breaks it. Yeah, he throws the mirror and he breaks it. And of course, he starts panicking, like, "Oh shit!" And, Grandpa's going, "This is the ultimate invention. There's only one on Earth. Hazel must have it." And Pikachu's like, "Oh shit! What did I do? What did I do? What did I do?"
In Pikachu's memory, like, Grandpa's gone. Grandpa doesn't know this happened. He's just, like, remembering Grandpa saying, like, "Yeah, she's gonna love this one of a kind, only in the universe, greatest invention yet."
And in the next frame, you just see. It's so random, but it's great. It's Pikachu freaking out, like, not knowing, what am I going to do about this? And then you just see his Slowpoke just kind of hanging out.
Yeah, and Pikachu, this is the part that confuses me. It seems like Pikachu's going up to the Slowpoke for help. It seems like the mirror just keeps flying out of Pikachu's hands, but that doesn't make sense. Is Pikachu throwing it to, like, show what happened? I don't know. It's really confusing and weird, and honestly, this part I feel like is kind of poorly written. If you're going to write a story with no dialogue, with creatures that don't speak English, you have to visually depict what's happening a little bit better than we get here, honestly.
And that's the challenging part about comics, too, because I agree, I didn't really know what was going on with that. I'm like, okay, there's a Slowpoke and Pikachu freaking the fuck out. Was it worth a whole page? Who knows?
So he mopes about not knowing how to break the news, no pun intended, to Hazel. But Clefairy and Hazel are worrying because they haven't seen Pikachu in a few days and they don't know where he is. At the end of the day, we basically find out that Grandpa lied about it being so special and one of a kind. He's actually mass-produced them to sell. They're mirrors that allow you to look into the future, one-time use only, so it's no big deal that he broke it after he used it. She orders Pikachu to attack since her grandpa's being like a little weasel, trying to act like he got her some special gift. And the face that Pikachu saw in the mirror the day before was the face that Grandpa made after he got all fried up by Pikachu's electric attack. I don't know. I like the Slowpoke, but this is probably my least favorite issue. It's just, I don't know, kind of confusing and pointless.
Yeah, it's kind of like a filler episode, seems
Yeah.
like. Just trying to throw some humor in there that we weren't quite understanding. But this next one, though, Christmas Wishes, is actually the one I like the most. I think it's the cutest. I am partial to Squirtle, so that might be why. So in this one, they're going to Jigglypuff's mansion for a Christmas party. And I love how Jigglypuff's house turns into a mansion.
Or does Jigglypuff have both a house and a mansion?
We'll never know.
That's kind of what I assumed.
It's just the summer home versus the
Exactly.
mansion.
Yeah, it's Christmas Eve. Hazel, Almond, Grandpa, Clefairy, and Pikachu are all going there to stay the night and celebrate Christmas, basically because the place they live, the weather's too perfect and sunshiny and warm. But Hazel wants to share a romantic white Christmas with Almond, so I don't know how far away Jigglypuff's mansion is, but that's where they go to spend Christmas. It probably is a different area. Her cottage has to be closer in a more temperate climate.
Jigglypuff pulls up in this Cinderella-style Jigglypuff carriage, which I think is hysterical.
Yeah, it's like a Jigglypuff-shaped carriage drawn by two horses and driven by this Jigglypuff with a hat and mustache.
And the horses totally look like the ones that you used as a kid, like the little rocking horses. Like, they don't look like Pokemon at all. They just look like poorly drawn ponies, which I think is really cute and funny.
And they're all bringing homemade gifts to exchange in this, like, kind of secret Santa-type gift exchange where you draw names out of a hat and trade gifts with the person you drew.
So they go in their carriage and they pull up to this mansion, and they're like, that's not a mansion, that's a castle, because it's just so ridiculously huge. So Jigglypuff's sister Wigglytuff meets them at the gate, and they go inside and they meet Squirtle, and Squirtle is just super freaking cute. Like, the style is just, I love it.
He's Wigglytuff's childhood friend, and he can also speak human language like Clefairy. Not only is Squirtle there, but the romantic Arbok and his two Ekans friends are also there. And together, everybody decorates the tree. They set up this lavish feast, including this gigantic cake, like of wedding cake proportions, and just enjoys Christmas Eve together. Aw, how sweet. Squirtle sees Almond off by himself and starts thinking about how cool it would be to go give him some food and just be like, hey, bro, why don't you have this cool piece of cake and this awesome enchilada? While he's bringing the food, Grandpa, trips him and he spills the food all over Almond because Almond can't go 2 steps without somebody fucking up his Christmas. Almond helps him up, and Squirtle is all apologetic, and he's like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, I fucked up your thing, oh my god. And Almond's like, dude, that's not important. What's important is that you're okay. And Squirtle looks into his eyes and is all like, hungry eyes, I feel the magic between you and I.
And it's funny because I thought Squirtle was female when I first was reading this.
No,
he
Squirtle's
kind of blushed a little bit. Yeah, because Squirtle said he's like the brother I've never had, and I just thought that was so sweet. I'm just like,
clearly has a crush on Almond. It's pretty cute.
Yeah, it's a little boy crush. It's super cute.
So they draw numbers to do the gift exchange, and Squirtle gets Almond's number. Almond gives Squirtle this little toy wooden airplane that he made, and I quote, Squirtle says, I'm ... so happy. All the other humans I've known have been girls, and they never ... never ... I'll treasure this forever. Wow! Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. Squirtle has a crush on Almond.
So cute.
Unabashedly so. Well, abashedly so.
And of course, Almond's like, it's just a plane.
Almond's like, how about women my age? Anybody? No? Also, let me make it clear that I'm joking about Almond being older. I don't think there's any in-canon evidence to support that. I just think it's funny. So this isn't actually a story about an older guy and a younger girl. I think they're pretty much the same age.
Oh, yes, I agree.
Maybe he's 1 or 2 years older than her. So they hang up their stockings and they all go to bed so that Santa will come. But before she retires to bed, Hazel puts on this like Santa outfit and finds Almond out by himself on the porch looking at the snow scenery all around him. And she comes out and Almond's like, "Whoa, what's up with your Santa outfit? That's interesting." And they exchange gifts that they got specifically for each other. Hazel gives Almond this almond doll that she made for him. And then Almond gives Hazel this weird, like, wooden thing he made, like, with her name on it. Like, kind of like a sign you hang on your door or something? I don't know.
Yeah, that's what it looked like to me. I'm not sure if there was, like, a blank piece of paper on the inside, like a scroll type of thing, or if it was just a wooden thing to hang on your door. But either way, it was a sweet...
Maybe it makes more sense if you live in Japan and you're surrounded by Japanese culture. Maybe it's like, oh, yeah, that's one of those things you buy at the gift shop, you know?
And it's used for this, exactly.
It reminded me of something you make, like he either whittled it out of wood or like something you do with like a wood burning kit, maybe.
Right.
It has like little birds on it. And it turns out she dressed up like Santa in order to leave something in everybody's stocking, just in case Santa couldn't make it out there. And that kind of ends Volume 1.
But there are also a few bonus comics as well, and they're just cute little tidbits of stories. There's one about Horsey and a mermaid, and
which that's interesting. If mermaids, so basically during a bathing suit competition where Grandpa's being a creep, Hazel meets this Horsey underwater.
It's actually a tanning competition.
Oh, a tanning competition. It was probably a bathing suit competition in Japan.
Most likely.
She meets this Horsey underwater and helps it get its lost necklace from underneath this cloister with the help of a mermaid, which is a whole nother can of worms. If mermaids exist in this universe, what are they? Are they half human, half Pokemon? Or just half human, half fish?
What I want to know is what the hell Horsey gave to her so she could breathe underwater. That's what I want to know. Yeah. Because I would love one of those. It looked like a crumb or something. Like, he's like, eat this. And she's like, okay, holy shit, I can breathe underwater. Like,
a shell, maybe. It's weird. Yeah, right. Also, apparently in this issue, Almond can understand Pikachu too, even though he directly said that he couldn't before, because they have guy talk where Pikachu's like, I saw you looking at Hazel in her bikini. And he's like, dude, no, I wasn't. Stop. What are you talking about? And Hazel's like, what are you guys talking about? And he's like, nothing. So, I don't know. It's weird. Then in the next one, Grandpa sets up this haunted course for people to walk through, and it's like crashed by actual Ghastlies, Haunters, and Gengars. It's cool. And then there's one where Hazel and Almond get into a fight, and Clefairy and Pikachu try to set up a party to get them to make up, and it's weird because it ends with a gloom knocking them all out, and it says, like, to be continued, but then
That's terrifying.
It's never continued. So... I don't know if that's some joke or what, but I
don't know. Maybe that's how they decided to end the English version.
No, it ends that way in the Japanese version too. Maybe it's just like better understood in Japanese. I don't know. So I don't know. Any thoughts? I enjoyed it. I really like that this manga exists. I think it's pretty cool, and I love being brought back to the early days of Pokemon, the early 150, and when the universe
simplistic.
Yeah, and the universe was vaguely defined, so you were able to make these artistic deviations from the norm of what's depicted in the game and the anime and the other mangas.
I think, and I'm not trying to say this in like an offensive way, but like it just kind of seems like it was written by a young girl for young girls. I get that vibe from it, and I think the artist and the author captured that because it is pertaining to young girls. She captured that very well, because my inner child, I would have loved this growing up. I wish I would have known about it because, it's very girly, and I like that it's something different.
Well, it's kind of great that you didn't already know about it because now you have 9 more volumes that you can read and come back here and discuss with our listeners. If you'd like to hear more episodes with Briana, what else have we covered? We covered Professor Oak, I think, most recently.
Yep, we've discussed the Christmas holiday in Japan. We've discussed shiny Pokemon, Butch and Cassidy.
A lot. Fan theories.
I really love doing this. Oh, the fan theories. That was a good one. Band episodes. That one's still one of my favorites.
And you also appeared doing the voice of Amelia Earhart on our 99th episode. Well, it was our 100th episode of Fairpoint, but it's episode 99 because we had episode 0. And
that I did.
That was a lot of fun. It was
first taste.
A whole big radio play, and we're actually making the radio play thing a regular installment on Fairpoint now. So you got to go check out our other podcast, Fairpoint. It's Fairpoint Podcast. There's also Fair Enough Podcast. If you enjoy Silph Radio, I guarantee you'll find topics that you'll enjoy on there. And keep an eye out because we've got more shows coming in the future. And, hey, you never know, you just might be hearing Briana reprising her role of Amelia Earhart sometime soonish, maybe?
Oh, I'm down. It was my first taste of voice acting, and I just got to work on that southern accent a little bit.
Well, there's a little teaser for you guys. Don't break kayfabe. Amelia Earhart's real. Final note. You got a favorite character from this comic?
I gotta say Hazel.
Hazel?
She's 7-year-old me. I relate to her. You know, I was that girl that, oh, why won't he like me? You know, just doing crazy things to try to get that boy to like you. And
Hazel is pretty great, and the dynamic between her and Almond is pretty great. I'm looking forward to reading more and seeing where this goes. From what I understand, one of Hazel's cousins becomes like a regular character, and she has like an Eevee or something, and she's like a scientist. I don't know. I'm curious. I really like Clefairy. I like Pikachu. Probably either Clefairy or Pikachu, but I also love Almond and Hazel.
Oh yeah, it's such a cute comic.
Yeah, you can find the first 7 volumes. I believe they're out of print, but they should be on Amazon or eBay. Just do a Google search if you're interested in reading this series, and let us know if you'd like to hear more. Until next time, I hope everybody enjoys their week. From the Secret Room,
and from Florida,
I'm Nathan K.
And I'm Briana Joy. We'll talk to you soon.
Stay away from the tall grass and broken windows.
And don't look under Tangela's tangles.
Don't. Just don't. Take our word for it. That's a Google search you don't want to do.